Welcome to episode 10 of CharleChats, the Ecommerce Podcast. My name's Nick, I'm the founder of Charle, a Shopify agency here in London, and I'm so excited to welcome you to our home for some very open, honest and real conversations with some absolute A players in e-commerce right now. So without further ado, let's do this. Lexs. Working with brands that have over a century of heritage and are growing through the toughest times in e-commerce and still claiming number one in category across a multiple of brands. What led you to Grays?
Well, I'm very lucky to work for a company that can fulfill that statement. And I think I worked in agency many years ago, but have been in brand for the last, I would say 15 to 16 years. And it was interesting because I've been working in digital marketing and online marketing before it was even called that. You know, when I remember being part of the generation that social media was invented for. So it was very
old Lex, are you?
I know, despite what it might look like, I am. So it was very interesting to ride that wave, and so now to apply those years of experience to brands that have been around for a hell of a lot longer is a very exciting prospect.
So Lex, tell me, let's start like pre-joining Grays. What were some of the previous roles at agency? Specifically, has it always been within the marketing space? Have you kind of dipped your toes into ops at all? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's been very varied, which is good. And I think the best marketers do have a varied role because they have to know what it's like to do each part of the marketing mix and have that full toolkit, so to speak. But the common denominator has definitely been digital marketing and online. So I started agency side doing online lead generation and email, and then that moved to web development, and then that led to a client side role. And then from the client side, I've worked in alcohol for about 6 years, which was really exciting. And that led me to global positions in different countries. And so when you've worked with different markets and you understand how different consumers react to different online stimuli, that's what allowed me to then sort of oversee the brands and see what ticks, basically, whether you're a cricket player or a rugby player or a parent buying for your child. There's so many different challenges to overcome. It was just a really interesting thing to get my teeth into.
Yeah, nice. I think so. Lex, tell us a little bit about your role now at Grays of Cambridge.
Yeah, it's very interesting, very varied. So I head up the marketing team. We have a great bunch of marketers who are very passionate about what they do. And my role is predominantly overseeing the change or the evolution of a business that was predominantly B2B2C to now more omni-channel business, where we look at clubs, sports, Stars Direct, people buying via e-commerce from the comfort of their own home, to bulk buys, to the elite athletes and teams all over the world, and independent schools. So we have a multitude of channels, and it's my role to make sure that we market those products effectively via each of those channels and effectively grow the direct business so that it also helps our brick and mortar retailers as well.
Yeah, nice. So for those who have been living under a rock and don't know who Grays of Cambridge are, what are the brands that everybody at home have probably heard of?
So if you're a cricket player, I think it would be very surprising if you haven't seen GrayNicolls being held by some of the world's top cricket players all over the world, in Australia, South Africa, India, Pakistan, and the UK. We have Gilbert Rugby, which is, of course, the absolute centre of the game, both figuratively and literally.
The rugby ball, right?
Absolutely. And also netball. So Gilbert Netball is the match ball that you will find in international games. And we also have Grays Hockey, which is the name of the company, still family run and owned. So Grays Hockey is pretty much the elite hockey stick that you will play with at the international level, right down to joining your school team or your club team. We've got a product for everyone.
Nice. So you mentioned there it was like a family business. And we've also touched on the fact that there's over a century of heritage behind these brands. So what was the story of Gray's, and, you know, where did all the other brands kind of stem from, if you like?
The story is basically a merge of two families, the Nicolls family and the Grays family, and the cricket side and the hockey side has developed over, as I say, over a century, developing products that are still manufactured and overseen by the family-run business, which is great. And then Gilbert was an acquisition, I believe, about 20 years ago. I don't know the exact time, but it was an acquisition by the family. And they've taken it to all new heights. And we actually celebrated 200 years last year, which was incredible, bicentenary of the brand. And we are top 10 female unions and top 20 male unions all over the world. So it's a really exciting time to work for the business.
What a story, like 200 years, two families coming together. You know, we were saying just before starting filming, like, you don't hear these business stories very often, really, do you? Like, it is rare that, a business is still very much standing so long down the road, if you like. And of course, we've got Ben, our very own Ben, with us again on the podcast. So Ben, do you want to give us a quick intro for those who haven't seen you before?
Sure. I'm Ben. I head up memberships here at Charle. So our lovely retainer sort of service offering. Supporting members in the likes of clothing brands like Billionaire Boys Club, to food, bev. We're very flexed.
Nice, awesome. So Lex, I want to dive into the secrets of Gray's and what it's like. I want all the juicy gossip. So let's just start off nice and easy. Don't worry, I've got plenty more questions to fire at you. I've spent many hours sussing what I can get all the juicy gossip out. What's it like working for a brand that has such heritage and such history behind it that I'm sure has just developed over its establishment?
I think in a single word, it's a privilege. It's an absolute privilege that everyone in the company acknowledges and respects on a daily basis. You know, whether that's consciously or subconsciously, we are very, very grateful to be able to have the destiny of that brand sort of in our hands, really, but also led by the family whose namesake it is great, because they've got so much experience. They help us. You know, we bring the new ideas. They have the old school ideas and the old school methods that have been tried and tested and kept the business alive through, you know, tough times, and their grandfathers and great grandfathers through world wars. You know, it's an incredible team effort to keep the ship going. But what's really exciting is their vision and their passion to keep the brands growing through what is now the digital revolution, and investing in Shopify, and, you know, working with agencies such as yourself, as well as really interesting new technologies like AI and VR. It's something that we're also looking at. So it's really, really exciting to blend what is the unknown future that we're going to help shape, as well as something that's been going for so long.
And it's quite a lot of pressure, right? I imagine.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah, it's good pressure though, as they say. What is it? Pressure creates diamonds, or something like that.
We'll go with that.
Yeah,
if I get some diamonds out of it, give me all the pressure.
So yeah, we try our best, and I think the secret of a strong team is the passion. You can't fake passion, and everyone that works there are very passionate about those brands and treats them. Even though some of the staff members are not the actual family, we treat it like we are. You know, not that sort of cliche term of, we're a family at work, but genuinely we know that it's a family business that we have to take care of, and so we genuinely do care. I think that's, speaking from my experience, a lot of people feel that way at work.
Yeah, because I think, within the sporting industry, of course with Gray's it's the history behind it and the heritage, but you've got some pretty loyal supporters, right? Where people have grown up around your brands. They've learnt their skills as sports women and men with the products that you guys are creating. So I imagine there is a real sense of responsibility as you guide this business through the digital changes that are around us to make sure that you guys are serving them in the way that they know and love you, right?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's a legacy, and a lot of our customers it will be their dads and their coaches and their grandparents who have said, look, I've played with those brands as well, that will introduce them into the ecosystem, so to speak. But of course, we can't just rest on that, and we have to realize that there are point of market entry consumers in the younger generation who will experience brands in a completely different way. And so we need to be there as well. Otherwise, we'll lose out. But I would say that that's one of the benefits of working with the Grays and for the Grays, is because they're still heavily involved. They're not sort of the family entity that are looking at a distance. They're in the trenches with us every day, and so they experience the frustrations and they understand the nuances and the details of creating a website, linking it to an enterprise resource planning system, and getting innovative new content for social media. They're with us on that journey, and so it makes the justification and the business case and the strategy, we're doing it together, and so I think that's really important and makes it a lot easier than I thought it would be. But it's a good question.
And actually, just to that, so when we see bigger scale enterprise level businesses, we always think there's lots of red tape, loads of process, it's very slow and sluggish, right? But actually, so it's great that you guys are really open to change, because I imagine it can be easy as a brand that's achieved real heights to want to stay doing the same thing, because that's what leads to success. But actually, like on an operational level, like ecom especially moves so fast. Like every month there's like a whole plethora of new changes that are coming at us that we've all got to adapt to. How do you guys find actually operationally moving with it, right? Because you guys have obviously achieved size before the digital revolution. So actually there's probably going to be processes that newer businesses that are small and lean find it easier to, we can just change that. But you guys obviously have probably got lots of people, lots of processes, lots of fulfillment, supply chain challenges to get through. So it's even harder to move with this speed, right? How is that for you guys?
It's funny because I actually think post-COVID, we've learnt to use new muscles in that regard, in that when we were all in the office, so now we obviously have some remote employees and some hybrid working, some constantly in the office. And I think that blend works quite well, because it's allowed us to, via Teams, get in amongst it in a way that we didn't do prior to COVID. So there's people in the business that I would rarely see in person, because you wouldn't just think, I'll get up from my desk and go and ask them what they're doing. But now, thanks to Teams and thanks to the remote setup, with Zoom and stuff like that, you can just get in front of whoever you need to get in front of for that particular question or challenge that you may have. And so it's actually subconsciously brought down the walls and the silos between certain departments and allowed people to get right to the person they need to whenever they want. And so I think that's helped a lot, because, you're right, a business of our history and our timelines that we're working with, we have to future-proof as well. You can't be cavalier with the processes, and you can't be cavalier with the things that you want to put in place. And so when you future-proof them, that often creates a certain robustness that is hard to change. And so being able to involve anyone in those discussions on an ongoing basis is what has helped massively. And so we have monthly interdepartmental sport meetings where we involve everyone from supply chain to product development to garment technology to sales, marketing, e-commerce. It's an open forum where everyone can come, bring their challenges and ideas in almost like a lab scenario, and that's working really well for us.
Nice. I think even just like chatting with you guys and the team, it honestly is awesome to hear, like, if we want to do it, let's talk about it and let's do it. It's never like, oh, well, I need to get it signed off here, and then we're going to go through here, and then we're going to do due diligence on this. It's like, it does feel really refreshing with your team, and that's probably why you guys have been able to maintain your standing as being a real leading set of brands over such a long period of time. E-commerce is hard, and sometimes you have to trust your gut. But if you want to be the next True Classic, your gut won't cut it. And that's where Triple Whale comes in. Triple Whale makes profitable growth simple and helps you understand who your customers are, where they've come from, what they've purchased, and how much they've cost. Triple Whale is an analytics and attribution tool trusted by more than 10,000 brands on Shopify. Still not sure that Triple Whale's for you? Get started for free today with Trends by Triple Whale. This brand new benchmarks tool lets you measure Google, Meta, and TikTok ad performance against friends and enemies alike. Say no to your gut and say yes to better data. Explore the free Trends app today at triplewhale.com/e-commerce trends. But that actually gets me on to, not only do you have multi-departments, you've also got multi-brands to have to manage of their own disciplines, right? And probably their own set of challenges, own growth goals, different markets, different sports, obviously. Where do you even start with keeping the fuel on the fire on in so many places? I'd love to dive into that, Lex.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest challenge, and one of the most exciting ones, in that each calendar, it kind of never stops really, because once one sport has got its launch out the way or its international competition out the way, you could pretty much bet that the next one is soon to follow in that space. So it's definitely an always on endeavor. But I think the way we work is we have certain teams that are subject matter experts within their sport. So the Gilbert team, the GrayNicolls team, and the Grays team. But then we also have cross department and multi-sport subject matter experts who, within their field, they work across the brands. And so we have a studio team, product development team who dip in. So you've got someone that's an expert in shoes can work in shoes across brands. Someone who's an expert in protection can do the same. And so we're not precious. There's never this is my area and this is what I do. We're very much a collaborative team. And so that's the best way to tackle it. Divide and conquer, really.
Mm-hmm. And so, as you mentioned, you're not precious about different brands. So experts within shoes, like you said, could go and work across multiple brands. But then those subject matter experts are there to really protect the integrity of those brands and make sure that they're getting that absolute outstanding level of detail and quality that your consumers expect. Would that be a fair sort of assumption of the way that you operate?
Completely. And I think the way we achieve that is just the passion of the people that work in those brands, because they play those sports. I mean, I think I mentioned earlier our head of women's sport, who ensures that we represent all genders and all shapes and sizes, is GB hockey captain, the guy that develops all of our cricket equipment, plays every single weekend and has actually represented England in the over 40s. So the people that play our sports love our sports and work on our sports and develop them. So you can't fake that. It's not like someone who has something as a hobby and then works maybe in banking or insurance or something. They work in the sport that they love, and that creates almost a synergy, an X factor, whatever you want to call it, that you just can't fake that. And that's probably one of the greatest strengths of our team.
Because I guess, they literally have the opportunity, you included, to create products for your passion, which I think is actually quite rare. If we have a fashion brand, you might not always want to wear the products that sell, for example, whereas I think in the sporting world, you want to create the best bat or the best shoes that you can then use and wear in your sport. And I think that's probably maybe a little bit of a secret sauce in terms of, well, if we actually have our customers in-house, that is how we can really make sure we are so much better than anyone that tries to compete effectively. Mm-hmm. So we spoke a little bit about the digital revolution and how you're helping guide the business through that. What does that look like for Grays? Where have you come from and where are you going in terms of bringing the business into leveraging some of the amazing tech that we are all now immersed with every single day?
Yeah, really, really good question. It's exciting because where we are so established, it does give us the breathing room, but also the spotlight on us as well sometimes that can be a little bit unnerving, where the innovation will come from us. And so we're very proud of that. And we've done some really cool things. So we have the Innovo Smart Ball, which Gilbert has pioneered in conjunction with our technology partner Sportable. So now you get smart data via Sage, who can tell you all the different stats about the ball and the players, and it helps in training and stuff like that. So having a smart ball is probably the next evolution in rugby, which is great. In hockey, we've developed probably the most technically advanced hockey carbon composite hockey stick in the world. Aerospace technology. It's really pushing the boundaries of what you can do with a hockey stick. And then our bat craftsmen, our cricket bat craftsmen, are just simply the best in the world, and it's farm to bat, from the willow farms to bat is all in house, so we control that entire process, and so that allows us to do some really cool, fun things. So people look to us first for innovation, and then we're trying to bring on board other things from other partners, like smart tracking, potentially, as I mentioned earlier, VR and AI. So yeah, we're trying to say this is what has worked for 200 years. It's probably going to work for the next 200 years, but we need to bring in some new ideas to keep it fresh, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, I think, and I love the saying, like, innovate or die. I think, and that probably rings true in this instance, is that actually it's so important to keep your finger on the pulse, because other people are going to be looking at you and going, what are they doing? Can I do it better? And you're probably continually competing without even knowing it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a phrase that I thought of the other week. It takes a long time to build 200 years of trust, and that's what we've done. We don't rest on our laurels. We make sure that we understand the I suppose the talisman that we are in the centre of these sports, and people are so passionate and they care so much about it that we realise that the responsibility is on us to deliver that back for our customers. It's not just about making money. It's about it's about shaping the future of these sports and the people that play them.
Yeah, I think I love that saying, and I think it is very true. But that also, going back to that responsibility thing, it's like, that is a heavy weight to carry, isn't it? Of like such success for a long period of time, to make sure that you keep going in that direction. And then actually, so we work with a number of brands, and it can be sometimes challenging to get one brand to have a very clear direction strategy. How do you guys kind of split your strategic thinking time across all those brands? Does every brand have its very own strategy? Do you apply a strategy for the whole business? Or do they almost run like their own individual entities that maybe have some similarities?
It's a blend of both, actually. So I think the company mission and the company sort of, I suppose, the vision statement is, we want to make the best products that help our customers perform and excel in their sports. And that's true for all of them. So that's definitely a common denominator. But then each individual sport has its nuances where, for example, we've helped craft the women's game in cricket, where there were just no products for them. And so we wanted to make sure that we created not just a cricket bat that female players can use, but it's a cricket bat that's been crafted and built from the ground up with a female player in mind. And so that was obviously a very key strategic decision. On some of our footwear products, they are not designed to potentially be the most expensive and the most technologically advanced in the world, because that's going to alienate our younger players and our school customers and our parents who are trying to buy the best rubber boot they can buy for their child. They don't necessarily want to spend £160 every year when chances are the children are going to grow out of them so quick. So we take all of those things on board, and we try and craft each individual sport strategy to tailor to the customer. So very a customer-focused strategy rather than necessarily a product one. But each brand has definitely got that sort of innovative strategy, I suppose, you could say.
Yeah, nice. I think just kind of going a little bit deeper now into like that customer piece. You've obviously got athletes all the way down to like families buying their kids their first cricket bat or rugby ball or whatever.
You can only buy your first cricket bat once, right?
It's very true. It's very true. And make sure you choose a GrayNicolls one.
Yeah.
So obviously you're probably carrying a lot of brand equity in terms of people know these are household brands, right? That people know of. Name a rugby ball, most people are going to say a Gilbert's rugby ball. What's your kind of strategy within new customers? Because I'm sure, you know, whilst it's like you said, you've got breathing room because you're a household set of brands that people know, and you know, parents are probably going to recommend. But is there like that little part of your brain that's like, well, that is true, but we need to make sure we're working hard ourselves to make sure we're still acquiring those new customers that might not have heard of you?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things that, particularly Gilbert's an example. You know, we make the world's best rugby balls and the reason they're the best is, you know, because of the technology that goes into them, the bladders, the blend, you know, we've got so many different types of rugby ball. There's synthetic, there's, you know, natural, all different types of latex and things. And so we know that. And I actually was talking with the Gilbert team and we said, well, we actually don't have that on the website because we know it and everyone else, you know, we just assume people know it, and you have to be quite specific with those things and teaching people what is the difference between the multitude of different balls we have. That why would you use this ball for training versus this ball for kicking versus this is a match ball. So if people bought a match ball and said, oh, it's only lasted a couple of games, you know, it can't be that good. It's like, well, no, it's been designed like that. A bit like race tyres on a Formula One car. They're designed for one race, you know, to be the best they are. Whereas you've got other, you know, tyres like your consumer one, like we have training balls that are designed to weekend, you know, after weekend for clubs to be able to train with. So each different sport has got, you know, very different parts of it that we need to ensure we communicate to those new customers that we acquire. And so we're trying to work with social media a lot more. You know, TikTok's great because you can have little bite-sized videos of how to inflate the ball to the best PSI, or how to, you know, select the best hockey stick based on your style of play or your position. So we try and do that as best we can. But I think that's probably an area that we can work on to do a little bit better, try and work on that complacency that maybe has crept in over a few years.
Yeah, I think it's still really interesting that we very much are in an era where it's like, oh, have you seen who's just joined TikTok? We've got Tesco's on there now. We're still there, aren't we? We haven't kind of got to the point where it's like everybody's there. You're still getting these like heritage brands that are like showing their face, or like, you see like everybody getting shit on LinkedIn for like doing an ad that looks like an Instagram ad on a TikTok. Yeah. All the social media marketers are like, oh.
Do you have a favourite tick? Because my favourite is the Ryanair one because it's just unapologetically. I'm not on it, so. Are you not on TikTok?
No.
Oh, it's unapologetically like not offensive, but put the cat amongst the pigeons, and I love it for that. So I don't know if you have a favourite.
I've seen Ryanair on Twitter where they're just like, yeah, that's why we're cheap. Of course, it's not going to be good. It's going to be shit. That's why it's cheap. What do you expect? Yeah. I think it's awesome, and I think it is really interesting how brands are having to be forced to like, well, we've got to talk to our customers differently through this different channel. And I think, you know, really that's separating the winners and the losers that are taking traditional marketing techniques with like an initial hook and very salesy looking person telling about products.
What works in sports as well? Like what is the top channel to reach out to your customers in that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'd probably say, I mean, Instagram is still up there. Yeah. But TikTok is certainly a wonderfully creative channel, should we say, because it's constantly reinventing itself with the different templates and cuts and sounds.
How quick have you been to adopt like digital marketing strategies because I imagine I'm putting words into your mouth here, so feel free to correct me, but I imagine traditionally it's been like around athlete sponsorship, getting your branding all over all the stadiums and so on. How quickly were you to kind of jump on the Instagram, Facebook, Meta bandwagon, if you like?
Yeah, I think you're right. That was the traditional marketing sort of route. And I would say it was around 2018, 2019 that we really started to make a conscious effort on the digitization of the company. And the good thing is there was a bit of a worry that e-commerce would potentially erode some of the progress that we'd made on the traditional brick and mortar. And that's actually not what happened. Our brick and mortar business grew as well because it showed that we were getting in front of that customer at scale, giving them the products and the product information that they needed that then allowed them to try it on in the shops and support local businesses. And so we thought we were going to see a decline in one and a growth in the other, and we actually saw growth in both, which is fantastic.
Oh, yeah, it's a story I've heard a number of times since doing this podcast, actually. Tom from Finisterre, he said they're two channels that both need one another.
Absolutely.
You know, whereas all the lovely news headlines like to be in-person shopping's dead, or the high street's dead, and then e-com's now dead, and then it's back again. It's like, actually, they're just two really strong channels that do need and complement one another. You know, you might go to the shop, try it on, like you said, and then buy it online, or get a reminder online and then going in store, for example. In terms of that kind of out-of-home marketing strategy that you guys employ now, would you say that stayed the same? Has there been any kind of like offline marketing stuff that you've done that might be of interest in sharing?
It's funny because we're trying to be as 360 as we can, because despite, you know, what you might think, we're not a massive team. We've got quite a lean structure, and so we try not to spread ourselves too thinly and do too much. Try and excel at fewer things, and so we've definitely adopted an experiential strategy, because we're very lucky in that, because our sports are played in stadiums around the world and clubs around the world, that you have a very unique experience to get tickets and money can't buy stuff and things like that. So we're trying to knit those together with the on and offline experience, as much as we can. So probably not anything in isolation, but I would say there's certainly still room for that personal selling, especially in the club market. You can have the best landing page about your team wear, and people can go there and find some information. But someone calling up a club and saying, "Hi, I'm a cricket player, you're a cricket player, what anxieties do you have around team wear, and how can we help?" And that direct discussion, you could never replace that, I don't think.
So it's like the real traditional, like almost door-to-door selling style.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really interesting. And is that something you guys really employ still now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we've got a dedicated team that is growing. So
and I guess you get such hands-on feedback straight from your customer when you do that. So these people are probably so valuable to learn from. I've said it before, like even with other merchants that have got their own, brick and mortar stores themselves. Percival were on the podcast, for example, and how they really listen to their teams that are working in retail to inform their decisions for selling online. Like I said, there are two channels that need one another, because the feedback you're getting offline, probably if you could actually sit and go, "Hello, website visitor, tell me about what you think," it's probably not going to be millions of miles away from one another when they're telling you about what's going to be a barrier to actually buying online, for example. So you mentioned a little bit about the kind of B2B side of the business being, how the business really began effectively. Can you tell us a little bit more about like an overview of what that actually means in terms of what you guys are selling and who to?
Yeah, sure. So we very much have adopted our omni-channel strategy where digital and direct is a portion of our business, but then via intermediaries and distributors is very much a growing and vibrant part of the rest of it. And so, we support as many independent retailers as we can. We also sell via international distributors in different countries who help the global reach of the brand. And we're trying to create that sort of symbiotic relationship where, using digital technology, we're supporting them as best we can. So that might be creating a digital asset management repository so that everyone can use the same content rather than having to make it themselves. So we're leveraging economies of scale, things like that. So we're all working together, and it's growth is hard and growth is sometimes painful, but ultimately we're seeing success and everyone is seeing success. So onwards and upwards, I would say.
And does that inform your direct strategies, do you think, in terms of maybe through distributors or retail stores and so on? Is there like feedback that you guys can get that go, actually, we now know that, so we can really change the way we might sell to directly to a customer?
100%, yeah. It's hard because you have to temper that enthusiasm, because if you have one retailer, for example, saying something, you can't extrapolate that to... It's a bit like marketing. Everyone's got an opinion on marketing because they're marketed to, but so they think that what works for them is going to work for everyone else. The skill in marketing is trying to take the individual out of it and looking at a segment so that you can create something that is scalable and valid. And it's the same thing with customer feedback. You absolutely need it from every level, from the pitch side parent to the elite level player, but try your best to dilute it in a way that it's applicable across those different channels, because otherwise you just get very polarized opinions.
So Lex, you guys are leveraging the power of Shopify,
Absolutely.
Shopify Plus. How is it for you?
It's been a very interesting journey, and it's taught me a lot. I love not being the smartest person in the room. I love learning from other people and agencies such as yourselves, and growing our internal team with the subject matter experts who know a lot more about e-commerce than I do. But it's been a great experience because it's just unlocked routes to market that we never had before. And I also like solving problems of our partners as well. So, for example, a lot of our clubs were, they want a club is focused on playing their sport and, making sure their members have the services and the experience that they need and deserve. They're not e-commerce professionals. And so Shopify has allowed us to create web shops for them, create very easy to create collections on a moment's notice. And so they've seen the value in us adopting Shopify as well, not just us. So that's been really exciting to basically say, look, if you want to work with us, if you want to help us make money, but also help deliver the right products to your members, it's been it's lubricated that process so well. So yeah, it's been really fun.
Yeah, I think it's really it's something we're seeing way more. I'm sure, Ben, you could probably echo it in terms of merchants are leveraging multiple tools now to start understanding the behaviour of their customers. Obviously, we've got like the fun of all the new privacy stuff that's blocking all the cookies and no one can kind of track people as easily, and we're doing more server-side stuff. Or they're just leveraging multiple tools, and maybe they don't all sing from the same hymn sheet, but it gives you a feel for what's going on. What are you seeing in the merchant base?
Yeah, 100%. I think on-site is something that's so interesting, right? Like brand to brand. I imagine in the likes of Gray's and Gilbert's, and you're across multiple stores at the moment, different customers. To a degree, they're all sports, but all into sports. But that on-site experience is something that I think people soon forget about. It's one thing to have a product and a brand, and people know it and love it, and will buy it. But what's working well, what's not working well, and I think having data points put across site, like where are we losing customers, where are they dropping off, why aren't we, making as much money as what we probably could. In store, people are spending £200 and up in one buy, but online they're only spending 50 or 80. Why is that? I think not every tool will work for everyone, but I think it's finding what really does work for all our merchants use such different tools, so you can't really talk to one is best suited for all. But and
I think even tools like GA4, as we'll finally get our heads around.
It's taken a while.
I think you could go through the first episode of this podcast and see how my tone of talking about GA4 changes every single month. It's like the beginning is like, it's terrible, it's dead. The next one's like, I'm just about understanding it.
Finally acquiesced.
I've just logged in now.
Yeah.
But I actually think that the data you can get is really great. It's just figuring out how to actually retrieve it and understanding how to segment down as well. That's the challenge of big data, is knowing what you want to find, because you can find anything really, but it's actually knowing what to find and maybe not being presented with these perfectly polished dashboards that you think give you the whole picture, but actually if you dig down deeper and start segmenting, suddenly you're like, oh, actually this channel's terrible and I didn't know, but the overall picture was very good.
Yeah, it's true. We had an example of that with actually our sizing. We found that our sizing was quite inconsistent, and so but the data wasn't telling us that, because the reason codes for the returns and exchanges were never too big or too small, because we found, for example, quite a few parents would just buy 2 pairs and so and keep the one that they wanted and then return it back. So they actually weren't that upset because they were just doing that, yet it was costing everybody a bit more to do that. And so surely by making a more frictionless experience, by us improving something, would make their life better. But if the data wasn't telling you that, then why would you do that? So it was really interesting that if you rely too much on it, you could potentially get a bit of a blinkered view. And it's very much important to step back and try and take that bird's eye view when you can, and speak to people who are dealing with it on a daily basis, and can tell, like, customer services team or schools marketing team, and then they can give you this is really what's happening. Like Zara, for example. I don't know if anyone's told them their zips don't work, but they really need to be told
They
that.
really don't, do they?
Has they ever worked? Like, no one's ever said that.
I bought a coat the other day, and honestly, I can't get it past the low bit. I'm like, I'm just not going to shut it now. Otherwise, I just walk around with this tiny little zip. Like, it's very true. It's very true. I've actually seen loads of our merchants implementing post-purchase surveys of not so much like write a review, but at post-checkout. So when that customer's in that purchase mindset, they bought their product, they go to the thank you page, and they're like, hey, tell us how we did. And I think that's really unique, right? People have been doing post-purchase review requests for years, but I think apps like Census from the guys over at Vervont, being able to really understand, because really, who wants to sit and tell somebody how great their experience of buying was?
Incentivize them, right? That's where loyalty programs come in, and people, because equally it's good for the brand to go, we're getting the feedback, but yeah, you're right. Who's going to do that unless naturally the only people that really do are the nasty ones, right?
And I have a theory on this. If you've had a really, really terrible experience, like so many clicks to check out, the last thing you're going to do is then click again to tell them how shit it was.
And even as someone that is responsible for those surveys, when I get them sent to me and you start going through and there's a progress bar and it's question 4 of 20, it's like, I'm not doing this. Just not doing it,
I always say that I'm like the worst online shopper because I'm around websites all day long. If it hasn't got an Apple Pay thing, I'm
it's not easy for me.
I'm going to go on Amazon. Sorry, everyone.
Totally.
I think we are. I still maintain my stance that we are really at a turntable in data, and I think actually we're probably going to get a lot better at it as the tech world moves to be more server side and way more accurate, and not relying on cookies and very and vast inaccuracies across different platforms.
Do you think Web3 is going to change that? Like, have you got any thoughts on that? Because I'm really interested in that, and I just think that as the democratization of data continues, do you think that that's going to make that point even harder because you've then got less structure around it, or is it going to make it easier because you've got more people with their hands on the spoon, if that makes sense?
I think it's a really... I don't know which way it's going to go on that one, actually. I'm still pretty out there. I'm seeing loads of agency owners that are like... I feel like this is something people are like all in or all not. I haven't seen many people that are taking like the middle ground for Web3 yet. Maybe... I don't know. The jury's still out for me. Am I particularly excited, and can I really see the data being completely unharnessed to what we know it is now? I don't know, because I think reality is it's got to be really, really easily usable for it to be adopted, and I think that's the biggest challenge at the moment. Is like, even selling online now, when it's actually quite easy, we still see massive barriers to do so.
Yeah, imagine how long did that take? When people I still remember the days when it's like, I bought this online. Really? You've given an online person your credit card details? That's crazy.
This is
You're nuts.
This is the exact, and my views on Web3 are very similar to my views on headless. It's like the next. I don't know. I'll probably be on record saying this, and everyone will be like, "You look like a right dick now," but actually, like. Yes, the potential of it is really cool and amazing, but is the reality of it actually very feasible?
Well, don't worry, I backed Minidisc hard because I remember when MP3 came out, and that's how old I am, and I was just like, more than 56k internet? That's never going to happen. You'll never download songs, and then it was like, yeah, that's now a thing. iTunes is a thing.
It's all right. It's in 3 years' time. You'll see Charle with like a little W3 next to it.
And people will be cutting. Web3 was nothing.
We are a Web3 specialised agency. Awesome. And so, we've spoken a lot about the successes of Grays as a business, but I'm sure that there's been failures over the lives of these brands. And what have been some of the biggest challenges since your time working with the business? What have been those big moments where just didn't work?
I think, I've only been with the business 5 years, and so I'd like to think that we haven't got a project under our belt that hasn't worked. We're trying to iterate and improve as much as we can. I think, to answer your question though, so I don't sit on the fence,
that was my Web3 answer.
Oh, was it? Yeah. It's okay, because I threw that back at you. It's just like, okay, you can have a problem.
It's like, right, where's my list? Where's the right
tough
shitter?
questions? Where are they? No, it's actually quite interesting because that Power BI piece telling us about data, one of the things that we found out when we had all that data was the amount of work we do on a clothing side, and how a huge proportion of our business is in fact clothing. And so, one could argue that there are certain segments of the business that should behave like a fashion brand, because that's what we do in terms of returns, in terms of sizing, or whatever it may be, supply chain. You need to act like a fashion brand, but we're not a fashion brand, we are a sports brand. And so to develop the garments and make sure that they got in the hands of the right people at the right time was quite a challenge, and one that we are actively looking to fix, because the data then told us that, and we then thought, okay, this is taking too long, people aren't really a big fan of this, these colours aren't quite working, these clubs are not a fan of these colours. So it allowed us to say, right, we make the best hardware, there's no question about that, but I think we could potentially do clothing a little bit better. And so we've grown that team, and we're investing heavily in garment technology, in kit designers and things like that, so that we can service those customers better. And we would never have known that otherwise. So yeah, that's probably still the one area of the business that I think we can continue to gain ground on. And
arguably, like, failings are just part of your road to succeeding at it, right? So actually, you could look at the example you gave around garment tech and be like, we should have invested in this years ago and we failed. Or actually, it's like, well, we've just evolved with it, right? And this is probably an example of as the business evolves to saying, hey, this is a great market opportunity for us, so we need to put a bit more of our eggs in this basket and see where it goes. But, what has always been traditionally an offline business, and until maybe more recent years, where do you think that e-commerce is going for Grays? Do you envision that to be like a much larger chunk of the pie, or do you think it's always going to be a pretty omni-channel even Stevens?
Yeah, I think if it grows and continues to become even Stevens would be great. I think in terms of where it's going, I mean, yeah, it's a tough one, because if we had the answer to that, we'd be a lot more successful in life. But I think it's about experience and going back to trends that potentially maybe disappeared, and you alluded to earlier, sort of coming back. People still love watching live sport, and you'll never change that. And so being able to integrate e-commerce opportunities with live sport and creating value add, whether that be collectibles, one-of-a-kind experiences, that I don't think will ever go away. And I think there's always, personally, any time that I've had the privilege of being invited to like a VIP experience, those are the ones you always talk about. And so if we can reward our customers by saying, you've been with us or your families have been with us for 200 years, as we've been making these products, and people choose us maybe as their first cricket bat or their first hockey stick, then we have a duty to reward those the best we can. And so creating experiences and memories, if you can blend e-commerce with that, so you're monetizing those opportunities and people are seamlessly enjoying and experiencing the sport while same time purchasing the equipment to do that with, that would be really cool.
That's right. We'll all have our headsets on soon, and you'll just be like staring at your favorite rugby player and be like, "Bye."
Yeah, exactly.
Just
like
click on their head.
One. Yeah, absolutely.
So I just want to dive into a little bit of team now, because I was really interested in like what happens when you put a load of people that are really interested in like teamwork and sports into a business and achieve some of the great heights that Grays has. And obviously, Lex, you have a lot of experience in growing teams and managing teams. Like, for you, like, what are those like secret ingredients that people miss, perhaps, that allow a team to absolutely thrive? What are those? What do you think those ingredients might look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not a secret. I mean, I'm pretty sure that there are other professionals in my shoes that would say the same. Is shared goals. People, I think we all naturally want to help people out, right? I do believe that we want to work together. We want to have that camaraderie. We're human beings are tribal. I think in our DNA, and so having shared goals. And to your point about where everyone's in sport, you can easily do that because you can tap into the competitiveness
I was
of the
going
team.
to say, does it get competitive?
Yeah, it certainly does. Like, oh, that sport's done pretty well this month. You know, you'll see the other sports kind of chip in. And so you blend those two together and say, okay, be competitive with each other, but help each other achieve the goal. And you know, that whole interdepartmental communication that we always bang on about
team
for years.
netball fight with team hockey month on month, like who's doing better.
Exactly. If you can tap into that and guide that flame, you that's your secret sauce.
You know, I think you mentioned that, you know, you've got quite a bit of a remote team. How's that been for you guys in terms of, you know, on your scale? And you mentioned that, you know, what's been really helpful to make you as lean as possible is being able to access people at a moment's notice. Are you a big remote fan? Are you?
I think the blend is important. Definitely important, because you know you can never replace in-person communication. There's no way that what you can achieve in a workshop, you know, in 3 hours would take you weeks, if not months, over email. So I completely believe that in-office time is vital. But I also feel that in the comfort of your own home, with focus, you can achieve more in 3 hours at home than you could in 3 hours in the office. So that's why I think that the blend is quite important.
So important, obviously, right? You've got to get the right people in. And I think that is what the remote world has probably really allowed a lot of businesses to do, is actually you've got the pickings of...
You can explore.
100%. Like even for us as an agency, hiring people with Shopify knowledge. Yeah, Shopify's a huge platform. It doesn't mean that there's an expert on every single doorstep, right? So Lex, businesses are typically going through a lot of change with the ever-changing tech that we're faced with, and you know, really innovating to all things digital right now. And obviously this is something you guys have really gone through in recent years. What advice would you give to brands who are really looking to adopt more tech in their businesses, or leverage some of the more recent trends that we are seeing?
I think what I would say is a digital transformation journey is not it's not a straight road, for sure, as with any of the great challenges in life. But what I would say is completely take it out of just the digital teams, if that makes sense. So, for example, e-commerce, it's not just the marketing and fulfillment, teams that will be affected by digital transformation. The entire business needs to be consulted, and during that project management piece, create almost little sergeants who will go into each individual department to mine information and mine process of how it will change. So, for example, you might be creating new vendors with new payment structures and new payment plans that the accounts team have never dealt with before. And so you'll get an invoice that you expect to, pay in 30 days. And then they'll be like, we've never done anything like this before. So we need to create something new, and therefore there'll be delays. So if accounts, which you wouldn't think in a marketing piece or an e-com piece, you need to get in touch with them, warehousing, returns, all these different departments that will be affected. I think it's often some businesses just think, well, it's only that department that's responsible. The whole business will be affected. And so make sure that you get collective buy-in, so people don't feel like it's something that you're forcing on them, like, oh God, now we have to do something else. It's this is going to benefit the whole business. And so what are your anxieties? What are your wishes? So that people are bought into every step of the journey of what's going to be made a bit more difficult, but then at the same time, what's going to be made way easier and improved after the digital transformation occurs. And if you get that buy-in right at the very start, before you make your first change, just right when ink is going to paper, that is what I would suggest.
Lex, Ben, thank you so much for joining us on CharleChats, the e-commerce podcast.
Thank you.
It's been an amazing conversation, and we are so excited to be part of and continue watching you guys grow and achieve new heights. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. What a conversation. Learning the inner workings of some of the world's biggest sports brands. Thank you so much for joining us on episode 10 of CharleChats, the e-commerce podcast. Please follow us on socials, head over to our website, and we'll be back again real soon. Cheers.